The perimeter map never marked the sidewalk closed. Marion Bell did not know that yet. She only knew the courthouse bell had ended recess. Her robe was hanging on the hook behind her chamber's door, and she had 40 minutes to buy lunch before the afternoon docket pulled her back inside. Her court ID was clipped inside the left pocket of her charcoal blazer. She kept it there every day, not visible, not swinging from a lanyard, not asking the world to treat her differently before it decided how to treat her at all. That was the small part of the day she protected. No robe, no bench, no one standing when she entered a room. Just a woman walking to a deli on Cedar and 8th with a leather portfolio tucked under one arm. 2 blocks west, a vigil for Malik Carter filled the old plaza. Malik had been killed the week before after a noise complaint at a birthday party. The city had approved the permit quickly. Folding tables held water bottles. A church volunteer passed out paper fans. Chalk marks from the night before still sat on the pavement near the curb. Marion did not walk toward the vigil. She believed in the grief. She believed in the lawsuit waiting on her desk. She also knew what a photograph could become in the hands of someone looking to question a judge before a ruling. So she stayed east. Away from the chance, away from the cameras, toward lunch. Officer Travis Keene had been riding the perimeter since morning on a chestnut horse named Brass. Brass was wide through the shoulders and tired of heat. Keene was tired of being questioned. A vendor had refused to move his cart earlier. A teenager had kept filming after Keene told him to stop. Neither moment had become anything large enough for a supervisor to notice. They had stayed small. Small things often did. Then they traveled with him. Keene saw Marion crossing the empty stretch in front of a shuttered dry cleaner. No sign. No barricade. No crowd pressing behind her. Just a black woman in a blazer, walking straight, calm enough to offend the story already forming in his head. He guided Brass onto the sidewalk. The horse's shoes struck the concrete one after another. Marion stopped when the shadow reached her. "Move," Keene said. She looked behind her, then toward the open pavement ahead. "I'm sorry, am I blocking something? This is a restricted corridor." Marion glanced at the street. The cones were still at the plaza corner. The tape line ended half a block away. The sidewalk under her shoes was open. "I'm walking to lunch," she said. "I'm not part of the demonstration. There's no marked closure here." Keene tightened the reins. Brass shifted closer. "I didn't ask for a legal opinion." The sentence landed softly enough to pass as ordinary rudeness. That was how it worked. No slur, no shouted accusation. Just the quick removal of standing. Her words became attitude. Her question became defiance. Her calm became a problem to solve. At the corner, Nina Patel paused with a frozen yogurt cup in one hand and her phone in the other. She lifted the phone before she fully decided to. The red record dot appeared on the screen. Across the street, Aaron Miles stopped near a coffee cart. Off duty, ball cap low, department ID hidden under his shirt. He recognized Keene. He also remembered the 2 closed complaints with Keene's name on them. One from a delivery driver, one from a teenager outside a convenience store. Same phrasing, uncooperative, evasive, no video, no discipline. Aaron stayed where he was. For now. Brass took another step. Marion's back nearly touched the metal grate over the dry cleaner window. "Officer," she said, still even, "your horse is crowding me into the storefront. I need you to back him up. You need to comply. I am standing on a public sidewalk." Keene swung down from the saddle. The movement was practiced. One hand on the reins, one boot on the pavement, baton at his hip. Marion felt the old courtroom part of her mind start counting. Horse position, officer distance, witnesses, phone camera, left pocket. She reached slowly toward the inside of her blazer. "My identification is in my left inside pocket," she said. "I'm going to show it to you." Keene caught her wrist before her fingers cleared the seam. "Don't reach. I just told you what I'm reaching for." He turned her toward the grate. The metal rattled once against her shoulder. Nina's yogurt cup slipped from her hand and hit the sidewalk. She did not lower the phone. Aaron took one step forward, then stopped again. Keene's thumb found the baton latch. A small metal click. Marion heard it clearly. "My identification is in the left inside pocket," she said again. "Check it before this goes further." He did not check. The baton came down once across her shoulder, enough to drop her to one knee. Her portfolio slid across the concrete. A pen and a set of keys spilled from the torn seam of her blazer. The ID stayed clipped inside, exactly where she had said. Marion kept her voice low, even from the pavement. Left inside pocket. It will answer this. The sidewalk was open. The pocket had the proof. So why was the officer still treating her words like resistance? Mark her as non-compliant. Officer Travis Keene said it before the second unit finished parking. Marion Bell was still on one knee, one palm flat against the hot concrete, trying not to let the pain in her shoulder take control of her face. She could hear brass shifting behind her. She could hear people at the curb moving and stopping, like no one knew which version of themselves they were supposed to be yet. Keene touched his radio. One detained near the protest line. Non-compliant participant. Force used. The words traveled faster than the truth. Marion lifted her head. I was walking to lunch. Keene did not look at her. Officer Pete Harrow came in from the east side of the block, young enough that his uniform still looked new at the knees. He knelt beside Marion and took her wrist. My identification is in my coat, Marion said. I have told him twice. Harrow hesitated for half a second. Then he looked at Keene. Keene said, she keeps reaching. That was enough for Harrow to choose the script. Hands behind your back, ma'am. I am not refusing, Marion said. I am telling you where to verify. Harrow pressed her arm back and placed one cuff on, then the other. He used more pressure than the moment required, not because she moved, but because the report already had a word for her. Non-compliant. At the corner, Nina Patel kept recording. Her hand had stopped shaking. The recording timer kept climbing in the corner of the image. She did not narrate. She did not argue. She only adjusted her grip when her wrist began to ache. Across the street, Aaron Miles stepped off the curb. Not all the way. Not yet. He watched Harrow lower his forearm near Marion's neck and felt the old complaint files return with ugly precision. A delivery driver. A teenager. Same officer. Same style of language. Uncooperative. Evasive. No sustained finding. Aaron told himself he was off duty. Then Keene said, she kept moving, and Aaron knew that was not true. She wasn't moving, Aaron said. Keene turned toward him. Back up. This is not your scene. Aaron felt a hand on his chest before he saw whose hand it was. Another officer, broad, already deciding where the line belonged. Aaron stepped back, but this time he did not step out. He opened the voice memo file on his own device, held it low by his thigh, and began speaking softly. Time is 12:26. Mounted Officer Keene. Horse tack number 7-4. Female subject stated identification location before second restraint. Officer Harrow applied cuffs after that statement. Sergeant Laura Klein arrived 90 seconds later with a supervisor's clipped walk and a liability calculation already forming behind her eyes. She saw the crowd, the raised cameras, Marion on the pavement, Harrow's weight. Keene standing too close to his own story. Ease up, Klein said. Get her up slow. Check identification before transport. For one breath, the street offered a door back. Harrow eased pressure. Marion drew air through her nose. Keene closed the door. She kept moving, he said. I'm not putting hands back in that jacket until she's secured at the van. Klein looked at him, then at the crowd, then at the transport unit waiting by the curb. Move her, she said. Search before placement. The right order had been spoken. It had not been enforced. Marion stood with help she did not ask for. Her shoulder answered every inch. She kept her chin level. The crowd parted badly, uneven and ashamed of itself. A boy near the front said, she told you where it was. His mother pulled him back by the sleeve. At the van, Harrow performed the transport search. Routine made his hands quick. Outer fabric. Waistband. Collar. Inner lining. Then his fingers stopped. He pulled out a worn Navy credential case. The sun caught the federal seal when it opened. Harrow read the first line. His mouth moved before his voice did. Judge Marion Bell. Keene came close enough to see. No one cheered. That would have made it easier for him. Instead, there was only Nina's recording timer, Aaron's quiet voice memo, Klein's hand frozen near her notebook, and Marion standing with cuffs still closed around her wrists. Aaron stepped forward again. I want it recorded, he said louder now. That force was used before offered identification was checked. I have a time-stamped statement. Captain Renee Foster arrived 20 minutes later. She did not ask Keene for his feelings. She took his field unit number. She took Harrow's transport search slip. She took Aaron's voice memo notice and Nina's contact information. Then she looked at Klein. Pull every mounted unit force complaint for the last 3 years. Keen's face changed at that. Not when he saw the credential. When he heard the word every. One line in the radio event tried to make Marion into a protester. Did you catch which line opened the whole file? Captain Renee Foster slid the pattern review packet across the table before anyone could ask for more time. It landed flat. No speech. No raised voice. Just a brown folder with 5 colored tabs and a stamped receipt from Internal Affairs. Judge Marion Bell sat at the far end of the civilian review room with her left arm resting in a gray medical sling. She did not wear a robe. She did not sit at the center. She sat where complainants sat. That mattered. Officer Travis Keen sat with his union representative 2 chairs away from the wall. His mounted badge was no longer on his shirt. A square of darker fabric marked where it had been. Sergeant Laura Klein kept both hands around a paper cup she had not touched. The city attorney opened with the same soft trick every institution used when it needed a delay to look reasonable. We are requesting that any findings be held until counsel can review the complete operational context. Foster looked at the clock above the exit sign. Counsel has the packet. We only received it this morning. You received the complaints years ago. No one answered that. Foster opened the first tab. A complaint language chart filled the screen. Not video, not a dramatic image. Just 3 columns and repeated words. Uncooperative, evasive, non-compliant, the delivery driver, the teenager, Judge Marion Bell. Different dates, different locations, same officer, same shape. Keen's representative shifted in his chair. We object to combining closed complaints with an active review. Foster clicked to the next page. They were closed without a pattern check. That is why they are here. Marion looked at the chart. She did not look at Keen. The words on the screen were small, but they carried more force than his baton had. They showed how a person became a category after the officer decided what the story needed. Klein cleared her throat. I gave an order to ease up. Foster turned 1 page in the binder. You gave an order. You did not assign it. You did not confirm it. You did not stop the transport. Klein looked down at her cup. That was the difference the room had come to name. A spoken order. An enforced order. They were not the same thing. The city attorney tried again. Perhaps Judge Bell could wait outside while the personnel portion is discussed. Marion's hand closed once on the arm of her chair. Foster answered before Marion had to. No. It may involve private employment material. It involves force used against her before verification was completed. She stays unless she chooses to leave. Marion stayed. That was the ordinary cruelty of the request. Move the harmed person into the hallway. Let the people who built the file decide what the file means. Call it privacy. Use it as distance. Foster opened the mounted certification roster. Keen's name appeared under current active status. Then Foster placed a command freeze memo beside the roster. Effective immediately, Officer Keen's mounted certification is revoked. Patrol authority suspended. Demonstration assignment access removed. Termination for cause initiated. Keen looked at the memo, then at Foster. Not angry now. Measuring damage. Foster continued. His state decertification referral will be transmitted with this packet. His prior force reports are quarantined from routine closure. Any pending case using his resistance language will be flagged for review. A department administrator stepped to the side table with a clear evidence sleeve. Keen's mounted unit access card went in first. Then his radio. Then the laminated stable gate pass that had let him draw brass from the city barn that morning. The sleeve sealed with a short plastic click. Keen watched the gate pass longer than he watched anything else. It was the first consequence he could feel. Not a headline. Note à lecture. A door he could no longer open. Foster turned the next page. Officer Pete Harrow receives formal discipline for failure to verify offered identification before transport and for excessive restraint pressure. He is removed from protest assignments until retraining and review. Harrow was not in the room. His name was still there. That was how records worked when they worked correctly. They traveled without waiting for the body. Foster turned to Klein. Sergeant Laura Klein is reassigned out of field supervision. Demonstration. Command authority suspended. She will complete remedial command training before any return to field leadership. Klein nodded once. It was not forgiveness. It was receipt. Then Foster read the unit order. Mounted patrols suspended from demonstration deployment inside city limits. All mounted force files from the last 3 years reopened for sampling. 2 complaints using matching resistance language trigger automatic pattern review. No officer may expand a pedestrian restriction beyond the approved deployment sheet without recorded supervisor confirmation. Any person who identifies the location of government or employment identification must have that claim checked by a second officer before transport, unless an immediate physical threat is documented. Supervisor de-escalation orders must be assigned by name and confirmed back on the channel. Bystander video must be preserved before officer narratives are finalized. The city attorney stopped writing. Marion noticed that. So did Aaron Miles, sitting in the back row, plain clothes, shoulders squared, no longer hiding that he was there. The room had already grown colder around him at work. Conversation stopped when he entered. His testimony had cost him. He had come anyway. Foster closed the packet. Aaron Miles receives witness notation. Retaliation complaints related to his testimony go directly to the civilian board, not through his chain of command. Aaron looked down at his hands. That was not a reward. It was protection from the price of telling the truth. Outside the building, Tanya Reid stood before the council cameras and kept Malik Carter's name in the first sentence. She would not let the city turn Marion into the only victim worth remembering. The council vote came later. Not unanimous. Enough. The mounted unit lost demonstration authority inside Riverton. Future crowd control deployments required annual de-escalation certification, map-locked pedestrian zones, and supervisor confirmation before any person could be moved from an open sidewalk. Weeks later, Marion received her blazer from the tailor. The inside seam had been repaired with thread a shade darker than the fabric. She ran her thumb over the line once, then clipped her identification back into the pocket. Not because the pocket had saved her. It had not. Because they had been told where to look. The robe was not what made her credible. The ignored pocket was what made them answer. This is a fictional story created for dramatic and educational purposes. Names, places, departments, agencies, and events are invented.